It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is something brand new from a band called REXX, Chris.
Yeah.
And, in my haste here, I didn't dial up Johnny. So I'm going to do it right now as we speak.
All right.
I, too, exited the studio, and I came back, and I was just like, holy shit, I got to
whoops.
Yeah, I got to get this guy on the phone. So yeah. I just dialed him up.
That's fine.
Maybe he'll be ready to just jump right on with us.
I hope he is.
Thought he was ready to go.
Hello.
Johnny.
Yo.
It's Neely and Chris. How are you, man?
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. We were getting a little nervous there. We thought that maybe your phone died or something.
Oh, no. My your favorite band, Air Supply, just, went a little long tonight.
It is mine. It's one of my favorites, not Neely's.
Hey, you know what? We can change it. You got to come to a show, because trust me, it's not like those old records. Those old records are very soft.
Okay, tickets
really
backstage passes. I'm there.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Done.
All right, excellent. So when you're in the Chicago area, I'll be there.
We are coming to Chicago around that area later this year, so I'm going to hold you to it.
All right, I'll be there, man. I'm a man of my word. Chris can tell you that.
Yeah, he'll show.
Neely, you're going to get a photo with the guys. We're going to hang it up on the wall, in the studio. You're going to be a fan. You're going to be a diehard Airhead.
Oh, well, okay. All right, Johnny. Well, Chris has been very stoked, very pumped all week, knowing that you were going to be on the show tonight. And each of us, Chris and I, over our 20-year history of the show, we have our own little, what do you want to call, guilty pleasures. And I know that Air Supply is one of Chris's. He's made that very well known here on the show, and. He was just like, we got to bring this guy on, man. I am such a diehard fan. So I'll let Chris handle it.
Okay. Sounds
what's
good.
up, Johnny? How are you, man?
I might call you a wimp, but that's okay.
It's fine with me. Call me whatever.
No, not you, Neely.
Oh. Well, he has and you've probably run into this before, Johnny, so I'll just start out there. Neely's reasons are that Air Supply was that band that he listened to with the ex that was a nightmare. So that's part of his deal. So, and I'm sure you probably have that reaction with a lot of people that listen to Air Supply, trying to bang their chicks, and their chicks ended up being crazy.
Well, that's absolutely nothing new to the Air Supply world. Since day one, the men in the relationships have never liked Air Supply. It's always been the females that loved it. And, the guys would go, oh, it's pussy rock. I'm not going to go listen to that. And the show would be filled with 100,000 women.
Which is perfect.
For the guys back then, that must have really sucked.
Yeah, really. Well, Johnny, let's delve into a little bit of Air Supply stuff first before we get into your new project. As Neely said, I'm a big fan of basically all of that 70s pop stuff, and certainly Air Supply was at the top of that game. For you, who I'm assuming is younger than that age, how do you end up, getting into that band and, finding what seems to be a very comfortable long-term home for yourself within Air Supply?
Yeah, well, I'm not that young. I grew up with Air Supply, and some of the dances at my high schools were named, the Lost in Love dance or something like that, right? But I grew up in the guitar shops working in Salt Lake City, Utah. And one day, Graham Russell, the songwriter and founder of the band Air Supply, came into Salt Lake. They had a house in Malibu that burned down in one of the many fires. And they had just purchased some getaway property up in Park City, Utah. And that's, where all the actors hang out. I'm sure you've heard of the Sundance Film Festival. So it's a very, very, really cool, hip area to be in. And when their house burned down, they grabbed what they could and just headed for the hills, literally. Okay. And ended up staying there. It's 25 years later now. He's still living there from that move. So naturally, I'm working in the stores. He needed some gear, and he came in. I had no idea who he was. I just happened to talk to him that day and sell him some music gear. Then he came back, bought some more music gear for the road. Came back again, and then finally someone told me who he was, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because, like Neely, I didn't like the band either. That's the ironic thing. I was not a fan. I was listening to, Poison and Warrant and Kiss, which is my favorite band. That's what I grew up with. I always dreamed of wearing the lipstick and the eyeliner and playing on the stage, doing the Blood, Sweat, and Beers tour or something like that.
Nice.
Well, if it's any consolation to you, Johnny, I hated the first bass player in Air Supply.
Wonderful. So I would change to different music stores as all music store employees become incestuous. They just kind of travel around to the different store that's going to offer them more money. And Graham ended up following me to every single store that I went to and worked at. And then he finally, and kept buying from me, and he finally followed me to, I don't know if you guys had Mars Music out in the Chicago area or not. They were a startup company that was a big box, but privately owned by one man. Well, I ended up running one of those stores as the guitar department manager, and Graham came in one time, to buy his normal gear. And he says, hey, we've been looking for a bass player. I want to put you on high alert, but we've been looking for a bass player, and your name's the one that comes up. And then he leans into me and says, I didn't even know you played bass. I'm like, dude, we've been hanging out for 7 years. Really? You didn't know I played bass? And he said, what are you doing this weekend? And keep in mind, this is like Thursday. So he was talking like the next day. And I said, well, there's a big sale going on here at the store. I've got to be here for that. And he goes, oh, you can't come down to Vegas? And I said, no, but Monday, I'm yours. Whatever you need me to do, go, whatever. I'll go check out the show, do the whole thing. Graham took that as a bad omen.
Okay.
Never called me back.
Wow.
Almost, and I would call repeatedly, hey, just check it in. What's going on with this bass player gig? You still thinking? Then I return my calls. Almost a year to the day later, he came back and said, hey, our bass player we just got didn't work out. What are you doing? And I said, wherever you need me to go. Where do you want me? And he says, we want you to come out to Elko, Nevada. We're doing a show out there. I said, Elko's about 4 hours drive west from Salt Lake. So I hopped in the car, went out to the show, saw the show. This was with my ex-wife. Well, she was my wife then, but ex-wife now. And we went out to the show and saw the show there. And after the show, we went and had dinner with Graham and his wife. And I was talking to Jody, which is Graham's wife, across from the table, and apparently he leaned into my wife at that time and said, so do you think Johnny can handle the job? And she said, absolutely, not a problem. He can totally do it. And he said, great. He had me up the next day to his house, said, here's the tour dates. We're going out for a month-long tour. You're the bass player. So they hired me with never hearing me play a note. Wow.
That's
just
crazy.
On a gut feeling. So if I sucked, I would have been with them for a month sucking.
Well, so once you get into the band, I mean, it just, I guess where I have confusion, and I'm sure a lot of people do, especially given, your heritage, more or less, your musical heritage, is this is, while you're saying that the band is much more rock than the records, it's Air Supply versus what is your heritage, which is more like Kiss.
Yeah.
How does that end up being comfortable for you? Was it comfortable immediately, or was it kind of like, oh man, what am I doing, or what?
Well, it's interesting because I took a different route in that kind of 2 years I was working at Mars. If I can back up a little bit, when you remember the band Tough?
Yeah.
Stevie Rochelle's actually a very good friend of ours.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Well, I went out and auditioned for Tough after Todd left the band.
Okay.
So with Michael and what's the guitar player's name? It's escaping my mind right now. Anyway, I went out there and yes, that's him. So I went out there and played with him and Michael, and Stevie didn't show up. But I didn't get the gig because at that time my hair wasn't long enough. I didn't have the look. Now, keep in mind, the grunge scene had already come in. It's taken a huge toll on the rock and roll scene, and so bands weren't working as much. Everyone wanted a Nirvana or a Pearl Jam to come play their clubs. So I didn't get that gig. And then probably about maybe 6 months later, I went back out to L.A. and auditioned for a band called Poe. I don't know if you've heard of her or not.
Yeah, sure. She was like popular in like the mid-'90s.
Correct. And also Michelle Branch.
Oh, yeah.
So I auditioned with both of them. Didn't get either of those gigs. The reason I didn't get the Poe gig is because my name is Johnny, and she has a big hit song called Angry Johnny, who was an ex-boyfriend that, she wrote an entire album about that she hated and wanted to kill or something like that. So naturally, I didn't get that gig. Didn't think that one through. I should have come in as Dakota or something. Dakota Lightfoot, straight off the reservation. But so I started rethinking this, and I said to myself, the rock scene's really taking a hit. I really hope it comes back, but I don't know if it will. Honestly, it would be great just to have a career in music, just to be able to play music, for my job, 24 hours a day, whatever. And, on a dream gig would honestly be playing with, like, the Backstreet Boys, because at that time they were huge.
Right.
And, just being able to make a salary, travel, not worry about the spotlights, just do my thing.
Sure.
And I guess I kind of said that out loud and willed that into play, so Air Supply came to me because of that, if you believe in that stuff. So the transition wasn't hard.
Okay.
I'd already been in that mindset of, I'm ready to be a fill-in guy.
Right. Well, how do you, and this is one that we've asked this a lot of times and we've never had a really good answer, and I don't know if you'll have a good answer or not, but, I personally know 1,000 musicians of all different levels, from Tony Iommi to, guy that just bought a set of drums, and I don't understand. There's a lot of guys out there that are similar to you in that they find their way into the national bands. Another guy that comes to mind immediately is like Jason Hook, who, went from being nobody to being in the Bullet Boys to being in Five Finger Death Punch. He just found his way into the national band circle. So, and it sounds like you've sort of followed that sort of path where you ran into Graham and then you were trying out, you were in that circle of people that get the call to try out for different bands that were happening at the time. So what is it about you or what you do that puts you into that little circle, where nationally touring, well-known, established artists consider you versus, every other local guy in every other city in the country?
Well, let me answer it in two parts. For the Michelle Branch and the Poe auditions, that was through a headhunter in L.A., a guy who, believe it or not, you kind of get some money to him, and he gets you in these auditions, and it's a cattle call. I went into those auditions with probably, 50 other bass players and drummers at the same time, just cattle call, and it was only for one tour. The tough gig, and this is kind of how I do it more, I'm a real persistent bastard. Just like how I made friends with Tony, I just email. I just stay on it and talk and let him know and send him some music. I mean, I'm probably that pain in the ass guy, but the squeaky wheel gets oiled.
Right.
But here's my real theory is, I think all musicians will get their shot. I really, truly believe this. And it's not a matter of talent versus luck. It's a matter of talent and luck. It's just being able to be selected by these people. I guess if they had 50 pictures out on the thing, something making you stand out, something that looks like their style or trying to fit in. And that's how that gig comes about. And then having the talent to back it up.
Well, Johnny, we've had we've interviewed over, I don't know, what would you say, Chris, over 400 artists on the show?
I'd say a lot more than that. Yeah. I'd say we're probably closer to 1,000 at this point.
We've had a lot of artists on the show, big and small, and I think the ones that Chris and I both enjoy the most are the guys who aren't necessarily a household name,
Right.
you know, and those are the guys who seem to have the most interesting stories. I don't know why that is. Maybe because they're not a household name, maybe they don't feel like they have anything to lose by revealing a little bit more than the household name guys. But guys like
they're hungry.
Yeah, well, perhaps, but it's just like, you know what? I'm a guy that I'm a support guy. I'm not the name guy, and I don't have a reputation among the fans aside from, you know, the people who come to see the show or whatever. But you guys always seem to have the best stories and the best insight into the music business because we've interviewed, you know, big guys. You know, we've had Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi,
Maiden, Pantera, Metallica. I mean,
Rob
we've interviewed
Halford,
all the guys.
you know, we've interviewed those guys, and not that they weren't a good interview, but they always steer away from giving you the little intricate details. And we appreciate guys like yourself who are out there slugging it out, making a living. You live in the dream, your dream, because it's just like it's a big deal to you to strap on that bass every night and go out there and play, you know.
Sure.
And you know, a guy that we recently become friends with is a guy who's been a roadie for a lot of years. His name is Ken Barr, and I don't know if you've ever come across him because he's roadied for a lot of people, you know, on the pop side and the rock side. But he's
Very possible.
Yeah, but he's worked for, you know, like the Bengals to Alice Cooper and Kiss, you know, guys like that. But anyway, I don't really have a question for you. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate what you do, regardless of my personal proclivity for the bands you play with. But I will bring this around. Have you had offers from other bands to play with them since you've been with Air Supply?
Yeah, I have. I was offered. The first one I'm going to do is a band you don't know of, but you know who the artist is. Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
We talked with Billy. We did a show, an animals activist kind of type of show, and Billy Bob was on the gig, and he had a sub bass player, and he came up and talked to me about his band and wanting to possibly have a new bass player, and he talked to me about it. And this is, of course, while I'm still in Air Supply. And obviously I didn't take the gig. I chose to stick with Air Supply. And then the other one was Tony Orlando. But I didn't want to end up being just a big, you know, Vegas guy. I wanted to see a little bit more of the world. And then the one we all know about is Disturbed.
Really?
Yes. They lost their bass player. I had an audition set up. I had all the music learned. And I started listening to the music, and this is a bad judgment call on my end. I started going, wow, how long are these guys going to be around? You know, their label could drop them tomorrow. And this is many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least 7, 8 years ago. You know, I think their second record just came out. And and I thought, you know, they could be dropped tomorrow. And I just don't see a future. You know, needless to say, they've now become one of the biggest metal bands there is, and I turned down the chance to audition with them. And you know, I don't kick myself, but sometimes it'd be great to get in there and play a little grindcore, you know, every once in a while.
Sure, definitely.
But
man.
that's really it. You know, I mean, my career with Air Supply is just about 15 years.
Wow.
And you know, most bands don't last 15 years, and I've been able to tour the planet with them several times over for the last 15 years. At one point, they fired the entire band except me and built a whole new band around me. And I had huge input on the guys that would come in. And that's the current band that we have now with us. So they got rid of some other guys, and they went off and did their thing in Vegas and had some success there. But we brought on all these new musicians. So there's a real loyalty that they have for me, and in return, I have that for them.
Sure. Now, Johnny, when being in what I'll call a heritage band, you know, a band that basically has, I mean, let's be honest. If Air Supply puts out a record right now, 400 ladies will know, and that's it. You know, because the people at the shows, they want to hear Lost in Love, Every Woman in the World. You know, they want to hear the hits. And is that frustrating to a guy like you that you're almost kind of cornered in that you can't really create, because it seems, and again, this is just perception from the various musicians I know, every musician feels like they're a minute away from writing that next big thing, whether it's that next big part in a song or whether it's being part of something bigger. Is that frustrating for you to be in a band that basically has had their creative run and is now settled into a more, go out and play the hits every night type of a environment?
Well, there's two sides to that as well. Yes, when we perform, we pretty much are a hit band with one or two new ideas thrown in. And the reason that is because we play a lot of casinos. Thank God for the casinos. They keep these classic bands working.
Sure.
But we're always on time constraints. 70-minute shows, 90-minute shows, and we want you out of there. We want the people in. We want them back out gambling.
Okay.
So we get tied into that. But a few years ago, we released a record, and I wrote two songs on it, including the title track, a record called Mumbo Jumbo. And we had a song on there called Dance With Me. Dance With Me hit, I think, number 20 on the charts.
Wow.
Now, that's nothing to balk at. Today's records charts aren't the same as they were back in the 80s and 90s, but that's still something to say.
Sure.
Also, we just released a new single called Desert Sea Sky, which jumped, funny enough, into the rave. So when I say rave, I'm talking like electronic charts. It's huge in the dance clubs, and it also broke the top 20.
Oh, wow.
So
very cool.
Air Supply's kind of taken a slight turn with it's not so ballady and love songy for all the new songs. Granted, those are there. That's Air Supply's thing. That's how they write. It's not a matter of, that's what we write because that's what we write. That's literally what they write. And even the dance songs are still love songs.
Right.
But they've kind of seen, we can't write. We'd love to write Lost in Love Again because that was the #1 single. But, we have to do what we have to do. So they still have had some charts.
Okay.
Now, granted, it's not the same success. I mean, you sell 10,000 records, you're barely making anything.
Right. Sure.
These days. So, they still have the success. So, no, it's not real frustrating for me because I'm also in on the creative side. Another hat that I wear with Air Supply is I'm their recording engineer.
Okay.
We've done a few golds and a couple platinums, with our live stuff we've done, and I've had my hands involved in those. So I'm in the studio pretty much every day that I'm not on the road with Graham, creating, writing, helping him demo songs, and then we take it out to the band, and we all kind of put our input in and change it up and then go in the big studio and record it. So I really have my hands kind of in the pie, in that aspect.
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying I'm a huge writing influence. Graham still writes all the songs, and he'll say, I need a bridge, or what do you think of this? And I'll say, well, maybe try this, try that. He'll sometimes take my advice. He'll sometimes throw it out the window. He has the final say. But no,
Sure.
it's still in there. The creative side is still in there, and then he also helps me with some of my songs, which is, huge. Being around a Grammy, I guess you don't have any Grammys, but a songwriter like Graham Russell, you pick up so much just by osmosis, just hanging out with him.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this, Johnny, and this is and I've said this, I said it to you, I've said it on the show, and I'll continue to say it. I love Air Supply. I'm a huge fan of the band. I'm a huge fan of the hits. The only thing I'm not a fan of, and I got to ask you if it's embarrassing to you, because I believe this came out during your time with the band. Are you embarrassed about that K-Tel hour-long infomercial thing that they did?
Oh, man, you saw that?
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Let me ask you something, Johnny. Who hasn't seen that?
There was a joke. We were watching we were on a tour bus driving around, and we watched the preview to that before it came out, like a early release. And I leaned over to Graham and Russell, and jokingly and very sarcastic, I said, I smell an Oscar. And they both just busted up laughing because they obviously knew that I was busting them on their acting and how horrible it was. But, they don't care. And so, no, I'm not embarrassed because it's not a direct result on me.
Right.
I mean, is it a little cheesy? Yeah.
A little.
But show me one of those Time Life things that aren't cheesy.
Good point.
They're all little, hey, so check out this song by Kenny Loggins, and let us come back and we'll do some Christopher Cross and some America.
Just the whole thing with them sitting there at the table with the bowl of fruit, and they're talking about, whatever, Orleans or something. It's like, oh.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is a little on the cheesy side, but let me ask you guys this. If Time Life came to you two and said, we want you two to host a metal compilation disc we're doing, but you're going to follow this script exactly.
I'm right there.
And we're going to pay you. You're going to do it.
I'm right there. Hey, it's Motorhead. Yeah.
That's right. And you're gonna cheese it up and do whatever they say because you want that paycheck.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Well, Jonni, not only are you involved with Air Supply as your main gig, but another one of the reasons we wanted to have you on tonight is because you are doing something outside of Air Supply. With Desi REXX, I don't know if it's formerly or if he's still got some kind of an active version of it, of the band DeMalls, which, originated out of Chicago here. And,
correct.
And how did you meet up with Desi, and when did you guys decide, hey, we got something, some chemistry here, let's do a project together?
Well, it's interesting. There is a record label out there called S&A Records. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They have Tora, stuff like that on there. They signed one of my bands back in the day. They're kind of an archive label, so they want music from that time frame that maybe had a little bit of success or to zero success and put it out there in the world because it's good music. So they signed me to a record contract for my band, Skit Scat. And we were the first band to go in and re-record the songs that we did back in the late 80s, early 90s, with today's technology, and release it. But in turn, we would also still give them the masters from the original recordings that we demoed, so they had both. They had us when we were 19, and they got us when we were 40-something years old. And so I signed on with that label, and Steve, the owner of that label, goes, "You're in Utah." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in Salt Lake." He goes, "Desi REXX from DeMalls lives in Utah." And I go, "Oh, wow, that's crazy. We used to play some DeMalls tunes in Skit Scat. We used to do All I Want." And I was never a huge DeMalls fan. I never got into them as much as some of the other guys. So I said, "Yeah, sure, let's check it out." So Steve hooked Desi and I up together, and Desi was working with the drummer in Salt Lake and said, "Yeah, we don't have a bass player yet. Why don't you come over?" And we were doing DeMall songs. So he does have an active version of DeMalls. It's Desi REXX DeMalls, and I'm part of that. I'm also the bass player in that. So we started working on the DeMalls tunes, and we just noticed that Desi and I really clicked. So I invited him over to the house, and I played him some demos with some songs I had, and he threw me some ideas, and we just started writing these tunes. And they just came out. And he had, I think he had like 6 or 7 songs, maybe even more, for a new record that he was going to put out. And we started listening to those, weeding through some of my songs. The ones that we chose of his, I replaced the bass on. And then he came over and sang on some of my songs, and we recorded them from scratch. And so that's how this REXX record came about. So, it was a collaboration of both of us just working together and just finding that chemistry. It was amazing. The first time we sat down and started writing, we were both just like, let's go that way at the same time. So, it was a real cool bonding moment. And so we just wrote songs continually since then. That's probably been like 3 years now.
Excellent. Well, how does a Desi REXX end up in Salt Lake City of all places? I mean, what goes on there to where, obviously your gig is music, but I've been through Salt Lake City numerous times, and I'm not even sure what they're famous for outside of the Mormons.
Well, yeah. I think I will let him answer that question.
Okay.
I think that's a better question for what brought him into Salt Lake.
All right.
If we want to leave it for him, if that's okay.
Do that.
I don't know I don't know the true reasoning behind it. I don't want to give any false information.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I dated a little Mormon girl from St. George for a while there, Jonni, and
yeah.
and I want to know, Is it true? Are all Mormon girls hose beasts?
God.
Well, some of them definitely have a dark side. you know that thing. Don't play your Xbox. Don't listen to metal church. Don't listen to Testament. What do you go out and do? You do all of that, right?
Right.
So there you go.
Wow. Oh.
Nice.
Well.
But I'll tell you what. If you've been to Salt Lake, you do know that there's very beautiful women there.
There are, and the girl
I'm
that
not
I
just saying
dated.
that because I'm. Go ahead.
The girl that I dated, she was a little hottie. I used to call her S&S for short and stacked.
Nice.
Yeah. But
Love it. No,
but she was a
Michael
5-time a day girl. She was 5 times a day.
Wow.
Right on. You an animal.
Yeah. But go ahead.
A lot of people have met girls there. For example, Michael Sweet married a girl from Utah, from Stryper. Also, Mark Kendall from Great White lived in Salt Lake for a while, and I think he was with a girl from there.
Wow. Well,
So yeah, there's definitely something in the water there on the women, because they're beautiful.
sure.
My girlfriend is right up there with all the rest of them. In fact, she commented to me. I didn't know quite what she was talking about. She sent me a text and said, "I'm a hot girl who likes to play pinball. Can you fill me in on that?"
Hey.
Well, she was listening, Chris.
That's good. Bring her out to the museum.
She would probably love it.
Next time you're in Pittsburgh with Air Supply or with REXX, bring her out.
Oh yeah, she travels quite frequently with me to certain tour dates. Of course, she only comes to the.
I'm not inviting you,
really
Johnny.
cool
I'm
places.
inviting her.
I know, that's what I said. She comes out with me, she can go. You guys will be happy she did.
Excellent, man. Well, Johnny, I got to ask you what's known as the traditional classic metal show question before we let you go and get Desi on the phone. So here it is. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
Would it be fair to say he hasn't?
Oof. Not
I
even
like
a little,
Lemmy,
huh?
and I appreciate Lemmy and everything that Motorhead has done, but I never got into that band. My bass playing is a different kind of bass playing. I'm more the Billy Sheehan type of, which is ironic with the band I play with, but very notey kind of bass players.
Right.
So, I listen to Billy Sheehan, Jaco Pastorius from Weather Report, Chris Entwistle, or John Entwistle, sorry, Chris Squire. Bass players more like that influence me. But, of course, I always do not love the Ace of Spades, which everyone knows that Motorhead song.
Sure.
But I never, for some reason, I never got into it. And I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't have enough exposure to Motorhead. And I hope I'm not, treading on, hollow ground here or anything, but I just never had the Motorhead vibe.
If it makes you feel better, I doubt that Lemmy has any influence from Graham or Russell from Air Supply.
You know what? You're probably exactly right, but I do believe that they have met and hung out and had some drinks.
Wow.
Wow, that would have been a picture in itself.
Yeah, no
Oh,
kidding.
you'd be surprised who these guys Graham has talked about hanging out, having Indian food with Tony Iommi.
Wow.
The English connection. Yeah, there's that whole English thing. I believe in L.A. I don't know if it's there anymore. There's an Indian restaurant. Excuse me, that Tony Iommi visited and Graham visited. And Tony Iommi is a huge Indian food eater. And this place had something that was so hot that the chef had to use a special knife that he could only use on that dish, that spiciness. He had to wear a mask and gloves. And if you ate it all and didn't die, basically, you got your name and a star on the wall. And I believe it's only Graham and Tony Iommi that have done that.
Wow.
Oh.
That I know of. There might be more, but that's all that I've heard from the story.
Sure. Well, one last question there, Johnny. Fingers
Sure.
or a pick?
Depends on the song.
really?
I play with fingers throughout Air Supply, but when I do a Demal show or some of the Demal songs, I usually will batten down and play with a pick. So it's whatever the gig calls for.
Excellent. Wow, look at you. Very versatile bass player.
Well, I try to be. I'm not I'm not only versatile. I mean, I on bass. I play also guitar, recording engineer. Basically, you put an instrument in my hand, and I play. On that first song that you played, the Little Sister song, some of the guitar is me.
Excellent.
Okay.
It's also Brian Forsyth from Kicks.
All right.
He also plays in REXX, and then Trent Anderson, who's done the Quiet Riot, and also, funny enough, played in Tough, and some other stuff. So, and Bang Tango, that's the other band that he's in. So that's the core band in REXX. It's myself, Desi, Brian Forsyth, and Trent Anderson.
Wow, look at you. Well, Jonni, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show. I hope you're a fan of this classic metal show now.
Absolutely. I get the podcast. I get them downloaded every day, and I listen to them.
Wow. Well, what do you think of that? What do you think of our format and our silliness?
I love it. I love it. I'm going to change, though, since you're not an Air Supply fan. I like Chris better.
Well, I am.
No,
you can still listen to my half.
I'm just busting balls. No, I think the show's great. You know, I love the fact that radio stations, online radio stations, whatever, are still getting behind the rock music. Like I said, I grew up on it. I'll die listening to it. I love playing it. So anyone that supports it, I am 100% their supporter as well.
Excellent. All right, Jonni, again, I appreciate you taking the time. And do you have anything to plug? You got any kind of websites or Facebook or anything out there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can find me at JonniLightfoot.com, which is JonniLightfoot.com. You can find me on Facebook, which is Johnny.Lightfoot, Twitter, at Jonni Lightfoot, and on all the usuals. You know, I have solo discs as well that are instrumental fusion rock stuff. You can find them all on iTunes and CD Baby, et cetera, et cetera.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Any relation to Gordon?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. There's not very many Lightfoots.
Oh, I understand that. So what's the relation?
I believe he is my grandfather's cousin, second cousin or something like that, so that makes us, I don't know what.
Well, it's all in the family.
It is. We play a lot of the same venues, which is kind of cool.
Have you played shows with Gordon, like Air Supply and Gordon Lightfoot?
No. Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be awesome.
we play a lot of the same venues, so it's funny. We either start a season and he ends the season, or he starts the season and we end the season. There's a place in San Diego called Humphreys by the Bay. Beautiful outdoor, right on the ocean. Boats pull up on the side and watch, and he plays that, we play that, and then I see his name all over the place that we play in the casinos as well. I talked to his tour manager maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and just trying to find out what's going on and see if I can catch up with him. And they are still gigging a lot. He is working nonstop.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
He's pushing like late 70s at this point, so I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen him a bunch of times and met him a couple of times, and I'm a big fan.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. All right.
But he doesn't like Air Supply.
Yeah, just keep grinding that in, will you? Keep grinding it in.
We're gonna change it. You're gonna come out to a show, and you will be a fan.
Right. Well, maybe I'll call up my ex-wife and invite her along.
No. I want this. Nothing interfering with. I don't want any excuses. Well, I was there with my ex-wife.
Well, I literally have not seen or heard from her in 30 years. So that's
Perfect.
That's all gone. All right.
He kept me 175,000 people wrong. We played to that in Cuba. So, we're the second Western band to play Cuba, and there was 175,000 people there.
Wow.
Yeah, Neely. Jeez.
Yeah, really. All right, Jonni. Well, what should we close this interview out with? I got these other 2 songs you sent.
Yeah, if you want to do that, if you want to save one for Desi when he calls in, whatever. Why don't you play "Need a Little Lovin'"?
Okay. What's the story here?
That is the last song that we wrote for the record, and I just had this riff and just kind of recorded it at my house. And again, as he came over, and I emailed it to him. He said, "Oh, I love this. Let's come over. I've got some ideas. Let's put it down." So in the studio, we just started putting this together, and I think it went 2 or 3 different ways before we finally came up with the thing. And funny enough, the chorus, I think, was written on the fly, and then we just kind of built around that, and there it is. Like the verse and the chorus were 2 different ideas thrown into one.
Nice. All right. Well, Jonni, again, I appreciate you taking the time, and you're welcome back anytime on the show. And thanks for supplying us with some unheard, brand new music.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on, guys. It's very kind of you, and I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, here's something brand new. This is from REXX, and this is called Need a Little Lovin', exclusively here. Where, Jonni?
Classic Metal Show.
Perfect.